Hello, darlings. Mario West here. Welcome to episode 355 of Love, Truth, and Beauty. This is our 13th installment of my video series, Conversations with Men. And I have with me a very, very, very special man who has been at the forefront, that's right, of men's work with his long-running podcast, Basecamp for Men. Please welcome Tony Rezac. Hey, Tony.
Hey there. I'm doing great, Maria. How you doing?
I'm very, very well, and I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you.
This is a topic, men, white men, all men, the hatred toward men, the blame of all men. As a woman of color, and a lot of women come at me going, well, you're a woman of color, you should know better. Yeah, and I do know better, because I don't see all that the hoopla is all about. I don't see disrespect coming from white men or men in general. I don't. I see it mostly from women. So let's hear it from you, because you're on the front lines. You're on the front lines with your podcasts, with the work that you do with men, coaching men. You hear it all. So let's first start out with your story.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks for having me on too. And people loved your podcast that you and I did, Spirit of Defiance. They really, people were saying, "Oh, I love you. Got to have that woman back on," and da da da. So yeah,
thank you so much.
Really great, really great. Yeah, I got into men's work back in the 90s, and it was I was in New York City at the time. And full disclosure, I'm a full-on libertarian now. Back then, would be considered a traditional liberal. I was a body worker and a healer and a creative type, and it was easy to identify with traditional liberalism at that point. Live and let live. The liberals had the more diverse,
the true
tribe.
Liberal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't even say it anymore because it's been so hijacked.
Exactly. And so that was my tribe, and I started off, I did the New Warrior training with the Mankind Project. I got invited to do that. And that's a big, cathartic weekend, kind of like in the Iron John mythopoetic hero's journey realm, meant to bring men out of their immature patterns, own their shadow, and kind of claim some of their masculine power in a really clean way. And there was people from all different walks of life, different sexual orientations, different skin colors. It was very diverse. And I really found my life's work there, and kind of the next phase of my life as I led, groups of men, staffed a whole bunch of weekends. And, this was pre all this woke stuff and this attack on men. That wasn't happening. Women were applauding that men were actually getting together to work on their shit. Because one of the things that men have a big issue with, doesn't matter where you're from, is this kind of isolation. We're so taught. I just did an episode called The Lone Wolf Syndrome with Tony Endelman. And, we're really taught as men, we're not taught to share what's going on, particularly the shadow stuff like shame or guilt, or even that things aren't going well. Like, I tell the story, like, men can have all kinds of just bad things happening to them, but their one friend doesn't know, because all they talk about is football, or they meet down at the bar to shoot darts and talk about the Seahawks. And the one guy's, you could literally have a situation where a man's got a cancer diagnosis, or his wife saying, "I'm fucking leaving you," and he won't even tell anybody else. He's so isolated.
Stoic.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, the men's work that I've been involved with has really been putting our stake in and say, look, we're going to create groups where men can be really authentic, share the truth of what's really going on. And men take right to it. Once they hear men speaking honestly, they're like, oh my God, this is finally I can breathe in here. They recognize that I feel wounded in certain ways, or I'm struggling with addiction, or my kid's not doing great, whatever it is they don't speak out loud to other people is spoken there in a really great and safe space where they can be honest and then start to rebuild their own hero's journey. I love the hero's journey. It's I'm a big Joseph Campbell's fan. I kind of co-opted some of that in my own work and my own life. And so, and it's true for men and women. Like what is your next chapter? What are you being called to do for the tribe? What medicine are you bringing for the next chapter? Because as you know, Maria, like who you are at 24, you're a lot different at 34, 44, 50. Like
That's very true.
I'm a
That's very
different
true.
version. There's an essence that's still the same, but I'm a different version.
Yes.
So part of what I do is help men through shadow work start to uncover what is being asked of you. What's the next version of you that's going to be more authentic, connected to the heart, truthful, all these different things. So we work to pull on some of those natural kind of transformational.
Is there a common theme that you're noticing across the
Well,
board, or is it different all the time?
Well, there's differences, individual differences, but there's also common themes. Like I think one of the things we touched on is that men feel really isolated, and so they can't get their bearings because they're in their solo boat. They're pack animals, but they don't know they're pack animals, right? So they're wandering around like Simba, like I don't know what I am, and it's like bringing them back into a tribe that has a very healthy regard for them, for women, and for humanity at large is really healing. And they can start to go, oh my God, these guys seem to, they're asking the right questions and they're living from the heart. And I'm hearing a lot more truth. So let me start to navigate that way more than what they're telling me to walk. Because, society right now is telling men, walk around with your tail between your legs if you're white, or if you're straight, or even if you're pro, you love women and you want women empowerment, it's like you can't even say that because, like, how dare you? Women can empower them. So it's like
apologize for being a man straight up. And I had an occasion where I was at a Lowe's and I had a man like kind of following me around, and I had this was when COVID just started, and I had just been back in America for just a few months. And I'm thinking, is he going to ask me out? And I was hoping, I hadn't been in a relationship in 10 years almost. And I'm thinking, is he going to ask me out? No, he got on his knees and apologized for offending somebody like me. And I'm like going, dude, you have to get the fuck up. Okay. I don't know you. You haven't done anything to me. I haven't experienced racism per se, or even sexism all that much, honestly. I said, you need to stop. And he was floored. Totally. I can't even imagine what it would have been like had he come up against some, woke, feminist, lesbian feminist, separatist man-hater. She would have eaten him alive.
Oh, yeah.
He would have let her.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, the narrative right now, it's to get people, they want us to feel the way that we see things. They want us to feel like we're in the minority by a lot. So they just keep broadcasting out all the woke stuff, all this like Marxist, hate America, hate heterosexuals, hate babies, like just like anti-life, anti-humanity. And they sound like we're the cool crowd and there's a lot more of us, but they just got the loudest megaphone. They're in the minority and they're trying to bully everybody to conform.
And they have really great tactics as far as throwing a tantrum that would be even inappropriate for a 3-year-old to pull. But if you have a group of them having meltdowns out in public and pointing the finger, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, and I'm like you, I'm in a very woke area. I live in Seattle, and I'm watching the masks going back on, and there's a part of me that's like, they're not going to fall for it again, are they? But I see them so ready to comply and so ready to virtue signal. And I think there's going to be more of us this time that are part of the resistance that are like, no, I know there will be, but I just don't know what the numbers are going to look like. I don't know exactly what they're rolling out every day. I'm trying to kind of look at the tea leaves and figure out is it a new
way to put it, the tea leaves.
Yeah. Is it a new virus? Is it another Lahaina? Like what are they going to strike from up above as a bio? Like what is exactly happening? And there's a lot of people don't even think there's anything going on. Although I don't know how you can sit with what's happening just even with yourself and not understand what is
That is
happening.
perplexing to me.
Yeah, there is something, there's a disturbance in the force, if you haven't noticed, like how
Yes.
can you not notice what's going on? But there's people that are like, oh, I don't think it's as bad as you think. And I'm like, well, okay, that's an interesting thing. I have a lot of evidence that I'm seeing, and I'm wondering what your evidence is that everything's going, smooth, or that, we're conspiracy theorists for saying there's a big war right now going on between globalists trying to, sort of tidy everything up and gain more and more control, and humanity that's standing in freedom and sovereignty. And, we just want to be left alone and have our own, have our lives basically, and it's not good enough. It's like they keep wanting to come at us. And I just think this is our second, like you and I are going to be in better shape, I think, spiritually than somebody that's just starting to come out of the fog where they're like, what in the hell's going
Oh
on?
yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
I
The
feel like it's
cognitive dissonance,
yeah.
very disturbing, because it just flips your whole world upside down, inside out, and then you're kind of in this gyroscope kind of thing, where all of a sudden your house is upside down,
Yeah.
and you're in this weird ooze of like, what the F is going on here? And if you're not used to contemplating, I think, unusual occurrences, and you're
Yeah.
just kind of like in your little drone kind of thing and kind of going like that, that can be really disturbing.
They're good at creating fear and traumatic responses out of the
Yes.
masses, and because then you're
Yes.
really susceptible to, like, oh, don't worry, we've got something for you, the central bank digital currency, you feel okay, we're going to give you 3,000 of those every month. And it's like, oh my god, thank you, finally,
Don't
I'm
fall
okay.
for it.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
not
exactly.
take any of that blood money. Don't do it.
Exactly,
Don't do
exactly.
it. What are men asking right now?
Well, what are men asking right now? I think, what goes a long ways. I think it's great when men are acknowledged for something. It can be like especially from strong women like you, just or their partners. Like when my wife acknowledges something about me being a man, I just feel really like I stand taller. Like she was, like, I remember one of the greatest. I've been with my wife for 30 years. And I tell this story.
Awesome.
I said, I've been sober for 10 years. And when I was about a year into my sobriety, my wife, I was just sitting there, at the table while she was making some food or something. And she just turned to me and she goes, Tony, you are without a doubt the most courageous man I've ever met. And
Aw,
and and I tell people, I go, that was probably the greatest compliment another human being has ever given me,
that's
because
beautiful.
it's one thing to say, oh, you're just so sweet, or this and that, but she acknowledged something that I value highly, which is courage in other people. I highly
Yes.
value courage in men and women and children. I see it. I acknowledge it when I see it. I try to bring it forth in the people that I am around and I work with. But for her to do that, like, and I just think, like, anytime you acknowledge a man for something that's internal, it doesn't mean much to me when, if so, oh, you're handsome or whatever, you're really healthy or whatever, it's like, oh, thanks. But when somebody really acknowledges an inner trait that you cultivate
Yes.
consciously,
Yes.
like, I want to be courageous. Why? Because we are courageous, and I want to be part of the tribe that is taking risks and standing up as part of the resistance to any kind of globalist,
Right.
totalitarianism. I'm
Right.
on the other side.
Yes.
Whatever's
You're
against human.
forging a new
Yeah.
reality
Yeah.
by really bringing forth those qualities
Yes.
that really uplift humanity and uplift our own mindsets and can inspire.
So I think, to your question, like when men get acknowledged for something that is really their gold, that maybe they don't always get acknowledged for, because you know how it is. you're a truth teller. Like, you just tell the truth. I love what you say. I'm hanging on every word. Like, you're a truth, like the truth just comes out of you naturally. That's one of your, like, really, that's one of your the medicine that you bring to the world, right? Well, if it was a man and he heard that, it would be like, oh man, that's just so great. I didn't know that, I don't get acknowledged. Men don't get acknowledged all that much.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
No, they don't.
good job,
They
good job
don't.
on that, or whatever. It's like something that's got a little more depth, I think, means a lot more to men. When you,
Yeah.
like, like I tell my own father, and I've said it to him a bunch of times, like, thank you so much for not leaving when you and mom got divorced. Thank you for staying around, because a lot of men would have taken the high paying job and just watched out for themselves. But you're such a badass, and
Right.
you're so committed to me and Jason,
Uh,
and so
yeah.
I acknowledge him, like, that is, and so that's part of his standing taller, is his son acknowledging him, like, I did the right thing. I did the
Yeah.
right thing for
Yeah.
more than just me, and it made a big difference in him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that sort of sacrificial
Mm-hmm.
willingness
Mm-hmm.
to delay your own gratification, your own instant gratification. And that's what I'm noticing with a lot of the young people, is that there is none of that. It
Yeah.
is me, 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 and you are in my way. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, my kids would never, ever act like that.
Yeah.
Never. They would never do it.
Mm.
And so when I see it, I'm just like, whoa, what is going on there? And from my perspective, and I get a lot of heat about this, because it's not on you men, it is on us women. We carry babies in our bodies, and we infuse them with all our uncovered, unquestioned, unchallenged bullshit in utero. And that's where the shit show starts. And so we have a lot, all of us, we have a lot to work through, just in terms of wading and extricating through all of that muck.
Mm-hmm.
And so that narrative of anti-family, anti-human, anti-life,
Mm-hmm.
and just let's just all be butts and be convenient and be on a conveyor belt, and everything's got to be like this instantaneous. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And if you have to put in any kind of effort, I mean, the frustration that just exudes from so many people nowadays,
Right.
because Alexa isn't working, Siri isn't working, or
I know.
whatever. It's like, fucking look it up. How about you just look it up?
Yeah. I've heard it referred to as they're having a high time preference versus a low time preference. So it's like having a high time preference is right now, now with everything.
Yeah.
But so many of the good things in life come from a low time preference, meaning, what am I growing? What kind of garden am I growing? What kind of relationships am I growing? What am I building that is going to be there 20 years from now? And have a
Well,
low time,
yes,
Bitcoiners,
play
Bitcoiners
the long game.
play the long game.
Have
And
the
so, yep.
intentionality of what it is that you are creating, that is sustainable, that's life affirming, life bearing, life giving.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a really, really good point.
Yeah. And I think that that's, a lot of, I mean, we're being so conditioned by technology. I mean, technology is just in everything, and we've just all been kind of grabbed, and the young people are even more accelerated in their dependence on it and their dopamine rush. And it's like,
Mhm.
to get the kids out camping and hiking and skiing and doing stuff outdoors without the phones attached to them. It's, as parents know, it's become increasingly challenging.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like the phone is fighting back, like whatever the entity is that has the phone, like it's like almost like a little addictive demon. It's like, don't take my phone away, I
Oh,
will be
oh,
bored to tears.
absolutely.
It's like, well, be bored to tears. I mean, who cares? I was bored a lot as a kid. We had to go out and find our own excitement. It's like, it wasn't just
Yeah.
being handed to
Doing
us. Yeah.
activities like I didn't get to sit in front of the boob tube, and I didn't want to. I
Yeah.
was always antsy. So I had to do something. I had to move my body. And
Mm.
so all this, just sort of schlunking in a chair in front of a computer or the phone or the iPad or whatever, it's like, it's just not real to me. You know, you sit there and you compress your body into these, you know, and you don't even move. Yeah, that's just crazy making, you know, and I
It is.
see a lot of kids. I mean, these devices are our default babysitters for a lot of people.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
that's criminal.
Yep.
Really, really, really criminal. So I want to backtrack and talk about what are the common themes that ignite men to do the shadow work?
Well, let's see. I think, you know, it could be just something where it could be they hear something in the voice of somebody that's a podcaster, somebody that's a friend, somebody that's doing the work, and they seem they've got something going on that I want. So, you know, the marriage is good, or just they're self-expressed and I want that. I don't know why I don't have it, but I hear this person talking about how repressed and lonely men can be and isolating, right? They might hear
Yeah.
something where it's being brought to their attention. They could just hit bottom, whatever bottom is for them. Maybe they're just really bored and restless, or they're drinking too much, or they're, you know, they're surfing porn, or they're just, or the only thing they do, they talk about football and fantasy football. And they're 45-year-old men. It's not really a grown man conversation. Like
Yes.
men need
Yes.
to be, what can I offer the world? It's not a fantasy football team. Nobody gives a shit about any of that, right?
Right. Or your
So
glory days in high
yeah,
school or college.
nobody cares about any of that stuff. Nobody
Yeah.
cares about that ego, none of that like hiding. I just think that, you know, it's up to men that, like, you know, myself, but also the men that have done the shadow work and created missions and have been really vocal. It's up to us to kind of continue to reach out, continue to speak truth in that, so men will know that there's work out there for them. They know that, oh, I can get into a group, I can do a training like the Mankind Project, or, you know, there's quite a few of them now that are doing them, and they're all doing really good work. And it's like, it puts men in a conversation about, where am I going? It puts them in a conversation about, you know, are the wounds that I'm carrying, do they need to be investigated to the point where I can lighten up my load? Because I'm carrying, I know I'm carrying some weight from my past. I can tell by the way that this person talks about it, the past seems more integrated, or they seem lighter. So, and I want some of that. Or, you know, I'm on my second marriage, I don't want it to turn out like the first one. You know, there's something usually in the man's journey where he's like, I want more light, I want more truth. I hear it, but I don't know where to go about it, because I've not been taught. Men have not been taught, you know. It's like, so they're like, they're little solo ships, and they're just like, I don't know where my harbor is. I'm just kind of in the seas right now. Are men finding a harbor? And the answer is they are. But you gotta listen. You gotta know that I want some of that for myself and my inner circle. Because once men start doing work like this, it changes everything around them. It changes the dynamic of their spouse or their life partner. It changes their relationship with their children and their friends. And so, and everybody notices, you know. And so it's important to hear the kind of call to wake up and to start to do work that's deeper.
Yeah. So I'm also curious, especially in this time and space that we're in, with all of the man blaming, man shaming, man hating, all of that. How are these, like, what are you witnessing in these men as far as their relationships with women, not just the women in their personal lives, but, you know, the sort of outer reality that just bombards them with attempting to guilt them, shame them, attempt them to, you know, squash them, devalue, slime men? What are you witnessing?
Well, it's funny, Maria, because I just talked to Tony Endelman about this very thing, and he had the same experiences I did, which is like, all the women are great. All the women that I know and have conversations with all seem so great and appreciative and respectful. I'm like, me too. Well, where's all this hate men? It's all coming from the megaphone of the mainstream media, trying to stir people up, trying to get people to come over and start to create conflict. But none of the men I know in any of my walks of life have any reports that women are like completely dogging us or
That's so
disrespecting.
good.
It's just from the media trying to make it seem like this is the new reality, but all the women don't seem to be buying into it. I don't. They're like going,
that's
no.
good. I do know the women who are buying into it, and they have a tendency to, follow the party line of all levels of feminism, even though historically they have no idea. They have no ideas about the first wave feminists, the second wave, all of that. So I agree. It's been really just sort of hijacked, and I think really pushed from the sort of cultural Marxist vein of things to just really push this divide and conquer and push the war of the sexes, push any kind of ism. And once you do that, people are easily corralled and easily triggered. We have that sort of collective framework of the a collective pain body of all the human atrocities in our collective history. And unfortunately, one of the things the Marxists and propagandists have learned to do is to push all those emotional buttons, because we all have it in our psychic DNA, all the atrocities that we have done upon each other, and what the slave owners have done to the slaves, etc., back and forth and back and forth. But unfortunately, none of that shit is specific. And unless you've done your own shadow work, you're not going to be able to tell the difference, whether this is actual or whether you're being psychically manipulated by the propagandists. And that's what I'm saying. These women, they just go absolutely apeshit. And, any guy, any man that happens to be in the vicinity, it's like, look out. And it's kind of frightening. It's frightening. It's like death.
It is. And they're doing the very same thing on race. Like everything's racism now. And it's like, I lived in New York City for 10 years. I live in a big city now. I know lots of people from all different walks of life. You name what their skin color is, where they're from, their sexual orientation, whatever. Like I know lots of them, and none of them nobody is seeing any racism. We all no, it's all live and let live. I have no issues whatsoever. And people say, because I've been critical of grooming children to change genders at a young age, that I hate trans people. I'm like, I don't care if you want to do that as a consenting adult later and you want to change your gender, that's on you.
Go for it.
But don't groom, let the kids be kids, like leave them the fuck alone. And that alone is getting, you're transphobic. It's like, I'm not. I'm common sense. And I believe children there's enough confusion and they're really malleable. And if you start telling Bobby, hey, do you want to be Mary next year? Maybe he's going to say, yeah, because he's, 6 years old and they like to pretend and make believe. But they're getting so weird and deviant in their messaging. And it's shocking to me that what they're doing with kids, it's so obvious, but a lot of parents are like, well, I don't want to be, I don't want to be against trans. It's like, it's ridiculous. What are you talking about? Like they're doing, the kids are, we have a island here called Vashon Island, and it was clearly targeted for woke ideology, probably 15, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. But they have an issue there where I want to say like it's more than 50% of kids are either transitioning or want to transition. I want to say it's like more than 50% are saying, I want to be the other gender. And it's created, somebody that lives there said, what they're doing? It's like all the cool kids are trans, right? And so they're all doing it. Like, it's like to live as a libertarian or just somebody that's conservative and said, well, my family's not doing that. My son's my son. And if he wants to be a woman later on when he's a full grown adult, and that's a journey he's going to take. Okay. I don't agree with it, but that's fine. That's his journey. But they're grooming it so much so that they're getting all of these kids to change genders and start to
Wow.
take hormone blockers. And I'm like, I'm not, good luck with that, parents. Like, is anybody standing up on that island? I sure as hell would be, or I just get the fuck off the island.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
It's really, truly disturbing.
it
It's like
is.
it's being marketed like cigarettes were being
Yep.
marketed.
Yep.
It's just a thing and you're going to look great and it's cool and cool people do it. I mean, come on.
I
Stop.
know. I know. I know.
I just, that makes my mind just go, and as a mom and a grandmother, I'm just appalled and aghast by it.
Yeah.
And it's like, step away from the vehicle, move along, because, and that's one of the things about the sort of consensus reality, or that mob rule of wokeism, is that it's easy to get kind of sucked into the hole that they want to suck you in on, so that they can hijack your creative energy, your emotional energy, your life force, and it just creates more of this divide. So
Well, and what you're saying too reminds me that, they have a megaphone, but they don't have the majority. They're acting, they're just bullying with a lot of noise. And a lot of what you and I are talking about is the noise. Like, the signal for us is to stay true to our heart, stay true to humanity, pro-life, whatever helps humanity, and let the noise, like, you and I have both done a lot of inner work. So I'm starting to get pretty, like, I've got a good shield around me in terms of like bullshit, but also people that maybe want to, say things about what I'm doing, whatever. It's like, I'm okay with that. Like, my journey is to continue to speak from the heart to humanity, knowing that the true warriors that are in this fight to help elevate humanity are going to hear it. And we're all doing our small part. Like, I don't have a big podcast, but it's long running, and we do a lot of stuff that helps elevate humanity, both men and women. And it's just to honor our courage as humanity and where we're going, and that, they want to have us just throw up our arms and say it's pointless. We can't win this. This is, we've got AI and Google. Everybody's against us. It's like, no, we have a lot of strong, courageous people on our side. Plus, I believe allies that are sort of, we don't know. There's entities and there's beings and there's
agreed.
Higher beings that are pulling for us. And they know we're emerging, and they're like, we're counting on you guys,
Completely.
Yes.
And this is where, I think, because we mentioned this when I was guesting on your show, having the conversations about natural law and the Hermetic principles, and going there. The first Hermetic principle of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental, and to be able to up level the way we think, so that we are not captivated by that outer screen of reality, which is part of the dive into the divide and going unconscious once again. And I think that is so important. And I know with my kids, we read the Hermetic principles. We read the Hermeticum when they were like young, pre-pubescent kids, 9, 10, 11. And it kind of blew their minds, because what we started doing, what I decided to do, was to kind of make it a game where, if you can imagine in your mind's eye and rest in that imagination and how it feels to materialize what you see in your mind's eye, imagine what you can create. And they were playing with it. They played with it like it was a game. It was almost like the pre-video games, where you're actually utilizing your third eye, the Ajna chakra. It is, I think this is the key to unslave all of humanity. Because when we can start imagining a different reality than what, say, all the news media outlets, etc., and these applications that are so popular are trying to push onto us, we can do anything. And I think that's part of the fun. And I know for myself, when I start going down that hellhole, when I start spiraling, I really do. It takes a concerted effort for me to wake myself up again, see my reality, and pull out of that matrix and get back into my awareness center and just up level the thought process and get back into my awakened state.
That's great.
I think that's when we start asking questions about is this real? Is this really where I want to go? Is this my life? You start asking those questions.
Well, and what you're talking about too, that's the alchemy of like transforming the shadow into the gold, right? So you're sitting with, this is bullshit, this is blah, blah, look at these idiots, blah, blah, blah. Then you start to recognize, wait a minute, what part of me is over there, the part that still is not quite awake to the unity? There I am, scared with a mask on. There I am, believing what I'm being told, like I'm a sheep over there, but I've been a sheep in many lives, like
absolutely.
And so it's like recognizing it and then going, okay, wait a minute, what am I, rather than judgment and kind of disdain, or just like even feeling sorry for people that look like they're just drowning in confusion, have like take the true high road, like bring them up, like what can I send them that's going to give them more courage? What can I send them that's going to help them break through? I wonder if I could do it with thought and prayer and intention. I wonder if this woman right here, if I can make a difference without even opening my mouth right now. Let me try that as an experiment in mentalism and the Hermetic principles. Can I get through the barrier sneakily, like a little ninja, a little spiritual warrior, like helping her, and so it becomes very playful in a game in the midst of what looks like a clown world right now, where I'm like,
No, that's very true. I remember one of my sons, Joshua, he was always like very contemplative, and he would like make these lists and all these different categories of his perspective on his life, what he was experiencing. And I just remember him like being a 12-year-old kid and going, so, and he's not my blood, but he's my stepchild. And he would say, so Mars, that was what I was called. Everything outside of me is me pushed out. I remember him saying that, and I was floored. I'm like, oh, yes. And so his whole thing was, and he learned this early on, that everybody that he encounters, he's going to see them as their ideal human. And so he was always the kid that was having these like magical experiences. And then, he's got a twin brother who had the opposite, was like always fighting and always, so it was a very interesting dichotomy between Joshua and Jacob to see, because Jacob's like going, fuck that, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But he got his ass kicked one day and decided to join forces with his twin brother. Like, okay, there's something to this, I see what I'm doing. I'm seeing everybody's a fucking asshole, and I have to check myself because I will like go there. And so when I notice the conflict, I always go back to, little Joshua going, everything outside me is me pushed out. And so I always look, okay, when I'm getting blasted, it's like, oh, because there's a part of me that's blasting these women who are like really, really, really terrified because they haven't done their shadow work. Okay. So what can I do? I can see humanity as their ideal selves. And so I endeavor to do that. It is a work in progress, because some days I'm good and other days I really want a comet to come hit the planet.
Totally.
you know,
Totally.
and that's fucked up. That's fucked
Yeah.
up, but I have to admit it. So I own it. And, and I go through this whole thing of, doing the Qigong clearings and all that kind of stuff, just to, let's just cleanse that out of our system,
There,
because it's like the Matrix is banking on us to get plugged in again
yeah.
and again and again to their agendas.
Well, and it's like what you said there about owning the shadow, like it's in so much stuff. Like right now, I mean, one of the great things about this whole last couple years, it has kicked up so many things in out of the shadows, and there's so many things that we've had to kind of readjust and own. And even I tell this story. I said, I used to really get triggered by arrogant men, what I judged to be arrogant men, until I realized that I could be arrogant. Like it was just my own arrogance. Like, how could I be arrogant? Shit, dude, I was an athlete. So athletes by nature sometimes carry a fair amount of arrogance. Like I'm a better player than you, or I'm graceful, or I know more about the truth than you do, or there's just a subtle way. As much as I play for humanity, there's a shadow in me where I'm like, I kind of think I know what the fuck's going on. And that can come off as arrogant, but I'm not arrogant. I'm too humble for that. So I push it all over there. And if anybody acts a little too uppity, I'm like,
no,
hey,
I do it too.
She's arrogant. It's like, that's my own shadow. Again, me not wanting to claim that I can feel a little superior at times.
Yes.
It's okay.
I've got an exercise for you, and I have it on one of my videos where it's a journaling exercise where you make a list, an exhaustive list of all your shit qualities. I mean, just on and on and on and on and on and on. And then you make a list of all your amazing qualities. And you could just make it all up. But when you do it, you actually video yourself reciting what it is that you wrote. And it's very, very revealing and disturbing, because you realize that everything outside of you that you can't stand is the shit within you pushed out. So once again, Joshua's correct. It's like the wisdom that comes out of 11-year-olds, it's kind of fascinating. But I found that to be really, really helpful, because one of my qualities is, people, I'm very rarely called a bitch, but I'm called an asshole, because I am an asshole. There is a part of me that is like really dismissive, and is just like, you know what? Get the fuck away from me. I have no time for you. And those are the parts of me where a lot of my deepest wounding resides, and a lot of that reflects the sort of neglect that I experience in utero and at birth and beyond. So it's funny, you don't get away from it. The circle continues, that circle of life. And it's about really owning all of it, because I think we as humans, we're not inherently evil. We are programmable. And because we're programmable, we are deprogrammable, and we can actually intend whatever it is that we want and actually materialize those qualities within our own being and evolve. That's what it is. We are eternal beings, ever becoming, ever being. So
beautiful.
That
I like what you said about that humans aren't evil. I think we can be sleepy and lazy in our work, but a lot of what we see, a lot of the structures, and I brought this up with many guests who said, well, humans are we're a train wreck, that's why the world looks the way it looks. And I always take I'm like, wait a minute, who's been calling the shots and created these structures that we live in? For the most part, you could say they're sociopaths. They don't really like human beings. That's who's really created this. Now, humans, I don't know if we know exactly. We know some of our qualities, but in terms of building a world, I don't know if we know quite yet what we can build, because that's our error, I think, is giving over who's going to call the shots to a sociopathic cabal that
Yes.
doesn't like us. So it's like
Yes, 1000%.
yeah. So it's not, so I always, when people say something about my tribe, I'm always like, wait a minute. I'm not saying humans can't be violent, or humans can't be careless, or humans can't be careless with the planet. But the things that we see, I don't know if it's the footprint of our leadership. So I think it remains to be seen. We need to get out from underneath the structures that we have. And there's a bunch of things
Yes.
going on in that
Yes.
regards.
Yeah.
However, I think what our tribe could create with a fresh palette would be
Yes.
amazing, but
Yeah.
we have to be given the chance, and don't feel like we're a piece of, humans are a piece of shit. It's like, no, we're not.
Enslavement of our minds,
Yes.
really. And
Yep.
I know, and we're going to have more conversations together about, just our occulted history, for instance.
Yes.
Okay. Because so much of that is just so key in, I think, reactivating the fact that we are divine creative beings, all of us here to move formless into form. And for those humans that are stuck in the matrix and just, droning on, following the script and not asking any questions, and this is as good as it gets, and I'm just going to live and then die, and I think that once people start getting the spark, it's going to be game over for the pseudo slave masters, because we're not meant to be enslaved. We really aren't. And the fact that they do what they do, the powers that want to be do what they do in front of us.
Yeah.
As if we don't notice. I mean, most people don't notice. I know exactly what they're doing, but why? And I know from my perspective, and I'm sure it's the same with you, it's because we got to a point where we had suffered enough. And it was like, not so much. That is not this is not my life, this is gonna hit. And to be able to sit down and actually ferret out the qualities that you want. So, when I work with my survivors, a lot of them were just programmed generationally that they're going to be sex slaves and that's it. I'm just going to assume the position. And then when I ask them the question of what it is that they want to create in their lives, they're just stumped because no one has ever posed that question to them. So having, these ideas come about, like, what would your environment look like? What would your bedroom look like? I mean, these simple questions, it's like mind-blowing because they have been, kind of anesthetized to even go down any feeling pathway that would include a personal self, their own mind, their own thoughts, their own bodies, and so I think this is the reason why podcasts such as yours, particularly focused on the men, and I agree with you 1000%. Men are not appreciated. The consensus that I run into, because I check off a lot of boxes, with a lot of these podcasts for women, and that, I look a certain way, so they think I'm gonna like kowtow to a certain narrative, and when I open my mouth and they realize, oh dear God, what have we got here? These women, and it's part of their programming. When I talk about appreciating men and really standing up for men and the qualities when they show up and they are courageous and they are creating a life and they are day in and day out showing up for their families, showing up for their jobs, doing whatever it takes, 4 or 5 jobs at a time, whatever. And I get bombarded by these haters that are saying, well, that's what men should fucking do. They're just doing their fucking jobs. Why should we thank them for that? That's what they're supposed to do. And that entitlement, it just makes me, I'm just, so I know what I do. This is what I do. The secret is out. I actually will grid us energetically during this spewing. And I'll do a little bit of energy work about, and 9 times out of 10, what will happen, they're spewing, and mid-spew, they don't even know what the fuck they're saying anymore. Because, and that is that automated, let's get on that bandwagon. It's like that group mind, feel, do, speak, spew, that echo chamber of wokeism where, you know, I didn't do it, but they just burned the whole village down and killed everybody, but nobody did it, you know. And that's what we need to, you know, we need to blast that. Blast it with love, as it were. Blast it with light.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's up? What are you working on these days? What are your...
Well, you know, I've been really big on Bitcoin because I think Bitcoin's I think it's going to be the structure that gives us sound money, and we could have a deeper conversation another time. But I just feel like that is a key component to building freedom and sovereignty, and it's for the people. It's really a gift to humanity. So I'm doing a lot of I'm having a lot of conversations. I'm doing episodes. I kind of gave it over to God in terms of, how do you want me to serve besides the podcast? Because the podcast is a staple. I love it. I put my heart and soul into it. But I have a feeling there'll be more men's groups in the near future. I'm starting to get men reaching out saying, hey, I'm getting curious. I want to have a conversation. Are you doing any groups? And then for me, I think I want to support men one-on-one, but not have it be so structured. I used to do really structured coaching, and they had to commit. I think just offering my ear and my heart, and kind of being a consigliere to men in a really kind of low fee, a 15-minute call once a week to support you on and not have it be so, I used to do like these big coaching things, and I don't really want to try to build something like that, but I do want to be a resource for men, especially if they like what they hear and they're like, hey, I like this guy, he's done a lot of work and I want a little bit of what he's got going on. And I've got this going on. I'm not talking to anybody. I don't know, I mean, yeah, you can get a therapist, but I think my background of, 20 plus years in the men's work gives me some street cred in terms of saying, hey, how do you want to do this? What would support you? Do you want to do a half hour once a week? Do you want to do what is going to be optimal for you? And just hear what the man's challenges, his shadow stuff, his frustrations. And I have a ton of different processes that kind of help pull some things out, but a lot of it's just like you, it just comes in the moment. It's natural because we've got chops at this point in terms of how we play. So
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Any parting words?
No, just thank you so much for being my partner. I really felt like you and I befriended each other on the first conversation we have. I just really feel like you're a kindred spirit. I just really love meeting people that are fiery and are playing for humanity and are just bringing the truth and not apologizing for who they are, for, who we are as a tribe. And so just thank you for all that you're doing. And anybody want, go subscribe to Basecamp for Men. That's all over the place on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can go to basecampformen.com.
Really good, kids. Yep. Really, really fantastic. Fantastic. I've been kind of binge listening here and there, and it's really good, really powerful. And I love the camaraderie. I love the synergy of what happens, Men have a lot to say, kids. It's like, let's just stop the divide already. Let's just chill the divide and just be, receive. I think that's an amazing thing, is to be in that feminine receptivity, because the masculine is actually the giver, kids. Don't forget that. And we all have it. We, men and women, and yeah, that's right. There's only 2 genders, kids. I'm going to keep saying it. Oops. All right. Well, we will have all of Tony Rezac's information in the show notes below, and do invite him into your world, into your universe as kids. You have a lot to learn. And so that's it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Tony. And we're going to have more conversations, and it's going to be fun. So until next time, my loves, here's to love, truth, and beauty. Mwah! Ciao for now.